Right, now we can speak to Heather Nauert, who is the US State Department spokeswoman. She's joining us on the line from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us. Now, many people are commenting on the fact that the strikes conducted by the United States, by France and by the United Kingdom were pretty underwhelming. They're saying that this was not exactly what they were expecting. Are you confident that the job has been done, that you have managed to degrade the chemical weapons facility of Syria?
Well, the goal was to degrade the chemical weapons facilities in Syria, and that's exactly what we did. The U.S. government, in concert with the British and also the French, had to carefully weigh our options there. And one of the things that's very important to us and our allies is minimizing any attempts or any ability to possibly hurt civilians. So we took that into account. We took other things into account, such as going for the pinprick strikes that can degrade the weapons facilities, and we think we did that.
All right, and many people are also now asking what next? I mean, airstrikes don't make strategy. What is the United States prepared to do next?
Well, first of all, let's look at what we tried to do before. We have tried diplomacy. We've done that at the United Nations Security Council. We've done that with the European Union, with many of our partners and allies all around the world. Russia continues to thwart all of those attempts and stand in the way. The United States and our allies had no other option. We have watched as 500,000 civilians have been killed in Syria for far too many years. And when we saw what recently happened last Saturday with the gassing of innocent women, children, and men, that was far too far. So the United States came together with those other countries, sending a message not to just to Syria, but also to Russia and the other backer, Iran, saying we will not tolerate this. The world cannot tolerate this. So what will we do now? Diplomacy is the option, but we're also asking Syria, they have a chance to get out of this. They could declare their chemical weapons, they could hand over their chemical weapons, and they could finally stop killing civilians.
Why is it that the United States felt compelled to intervene on an issue of chemical weapons use? And as you pointed out, maybe 500,000 Syrians have been killed in so many different circumstances, often with the use of what are considered to be conventional weapons. Why is it that the US hasn't found it necessary to intervene when the use of barrel bombs, for instance, have been used, as we know they've been used repeatedly throughout these 7 years?
Well, I think we certainly have. There's a new administration here in Washington as of a year ago, and that is the Donald Trump administration. President Obama's administration, by many accounts, never did enough to try to stop this. President Obama drew a red line and let Bashar al-Assad just run right through that red line. President Trump came into office. He saw what Bashar al-Assad did last April, and there were strikes on a airport facility that was being used to hit civilians. So President Trump struck that facility. Over the past year, we have tried diplomacy, and clearly the diplomacy, sadly, has not worked, and that's largely because Russia has stood in the way. But Russia has a unique...
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Heather, but I mean, the US has been decidedly absent, hasn't it, in terms of the diplomatic process? The US hasn't been involved in the Geneva side of things. The US has barely been involved in the Astana process.
Okay, come on to Washington. I would love to welcome you to the State Department to watch some of our briefings sometime. About 80% of my time, personally, is spent talking about what is going on in Syria and Russia's activities in bolstering the Assad regime. We have tried and we continue to support the Geneva process, which is supported by the United Nations. It's a UN-led process that could eventually get Syria on the right path to rebuilding Syria, getting to a political process, and eventually, a long way off, but eventually enabling Syrians and the Syrian diaspora to vote for a new president. The United States stands strongly behind that. The Astana process, frankly, has become a joke because the guarantors of the Astana process include Russia, and they continue to stand in the way. They're not serious about peace and stability, and we know that because they continue to support the regime of Bashar al-Assad as he kills his own people. So I would ask instead of just the United States, what the rest of the world is doing about this. You've seen the United States, France, and Britain take a leadership role in saying enough is enough. I would ask, where is the rest of the world in saying enough is enough as we watch these men, women, and children being killed in Syria?
Finally, Heather, can I ask you what do you think about the wisdom of the president using the phrase mission accomplished, because we all know the echo of George W. Bush and the Iraq War, which was a clear indication of him misreading the situation. How wise was it for President Trump to use that language?
Understood. And I'm a former reporter, and I covered the war in Iraq many years ago at the time that President Bush had said that same thing. So I understand why people might question President Trump's use of that. However, I think what he meant was mission accomplished in that, and this is significant, in that we managed with the French and the British to hit the targets, to not have a single loss of allies' life, and significantly degrade the ability of Syria to strike on civilians again. I think that is what the president meant by that. So I would ask you and all your viewers and listeners to please keep that in mind.
Heather Nauert, thank you very much indeed for talking to us here at Al Jazeera.
My pleasure. Thank you.